Welcome to the second of 5 videos from the Roman Army 2021 UofW lecture on enemies, Rome's foes. In this second video, this is the first of 4 on one particular people. I'm going to say a little bit about the Celts and Gauls, who have sort of grouped together, which maybe is a bit unfair. Start with them because they're the earliest of the 4 groups that the Romans sort of faced and come from early in the chronological range of this course, and they had a big impact on Rome, and also they are an example, well, the one hand of people who attacked Rome in various capacities, but also some of them lived in a place that the Romans conquered. Okay, so they're a conquered foe in that regard. Okay, and sort of disappear, sort of, after that. Okay, so Rome had a long-standing, let's say, relationship with Gauls, and Gauls, here I'm sort of grouping them together with Celts, which is in many ways more complicated and has to do with historiography and Roman views, and Celts maybe more the material culture, and Gauls maybe more some of the names used by Romans to describe the people from a particular area. Celts, of course, lived across a vast part of Europe and into Asia. The giant Gaul from the previous video comes from Turkey. Our history goes back some ways, and we even find them, of course, living in parts of Italy, Cisalpine Gaul, sort of northern Italy, inhabited by Gauls as far as Rome was concerned. The 390 BCE-ish sack of Rome was carried out by Gauls from northern Italy, presumably. So a long-standing relationship with Rome, and when you're talking about a people that encompass such a vast area over a long period of time, it's always going to be full of generalizations, and I'm going to miss out on nuance, but nevertheless, crack on. So that sack of Rome was quite important. It had a lasting impact on Rome's psyche, something developed called the Gladys Gallicus, Metis, Gladys or disaster. The Metis Gallicus, sort of Gallic fear the Romans had. And for a few centuries, if any people they kind of associated with Celts or Gauls appeared, there was maybe a slightly irrational fear that took hold. Or at least they might twist some sort of supposed pre-existing fear in terms of a motivation for going to war against that particular people. So if we go to the beginning of the period that we're talking about, Marius, etc., one of the things where Marius sort of made a name for himself was against the Cimbri and Teutones, who in the late 2nd century BCE, so the 100s to the 110s, or 110s into the 100s, fought against Rome. Okay, there were a series of people invading in various capacities. 3 consular armies were defeated. So I'm going to remember that in Republican Rome, in theory, a consul, and there were 2 consuls every year, and they would have their own armies. Okay, and on a few occasions they were defeated, which is quite significant. These interactions with the Cimbri and Teutones stoke fears of the Metis Gallicus, going back to the siege of Rome. And you can see hints of this in the life of Marius. And as I said, this is where Marius made his name, and some of his so-called reforms, which maybe he didn't really carry out and had been in place already, and he just sort of finalized the process, were in response to this. Okay, now the Romans won, and Marius got lots of special commands, but to some degree, this probably had an impact on later things that happened in and around Gaul, which was now more associated with France. Okay, so here's some coins from one of the Gallic people, the Veneti, who lived in more or less modern-day France, northwest France. And despite, often being on friendly terms and sometimes on hostile terms, the people of now, again, I'm thinking of Gaul, the people more of France, the Celts and Gauls, they carried out trade. There were various relationships. There's a lot of trade in goods and some in services. And one of the big items in trade between Rome and Gaul were slaves, so a lot of human traffic moving more towards Rome than the other way around. This wasn't really a united people. You could say, to some degree, it's a bit like the Greeks in the classical period, 4th century BCE, 5th century BCE. So the whole bunch of independent Greek city-states, sometimes together under individual powers like Athens or Sparta, sometimes united against Persia. Here the Gaul, sort of independent polities scattered around Gaul and, earlier, further away. Structure of society mostly based around the family, and there'd be several families in a clan and several clans in a tribe, and they might inhabit, certain areas. Some say that warfare was endemic, using both literary sources, and there's been a lot of excavation too. It seems feasts were one of the ways that one of the activities that brought people together and provided an opportunity for different groups to possibly to discuss their grievances with each other and live without war, more or less. In the feast, the animals would be distributed depending on potentially how important a warrior was. So a fairly socially fragmented society, loosely affiliated chiefdoms run by chiefs. And another thing that I haven't mentioned yet, one of the sort of unifying things possibly are the Druids and Druidic religion. Okay. Now, we flash forward. So Cimbri Teutones are sort of late 2nd century BC, and, maybe they're Celts or they're Gauls, sort of harder to say. Again, I'm just scratching the surface and smoothing over some of the discrepancies. So we get a guy named Vercingetorix, who ends up bending the rules to his own aims and ends up getting sort of greater power through most of what we would call Gaul, around 52 BCE. It seems there was little in the way of a cohesive political polity before that, and as I said, they hadn't really come together in the same way. There were times when they did for limited things. I mentioned feasts, the Druids to some degree, and there were some national assemblies. But there's a lot of variety, okay? So it's quite a thing that they all came together. There had been others who'd sort of risen up against Rome, and now that we flash forward from 100-ish to 50, a lot of things are changing. The Roman power continues to grow. They have not only become, hands down, for a while now, the strongest player in the Western Mediterranean, but they are now also the strongest in the East. Hellenistic kingdoms have crumbled, and their empires spanning a good part of the Mediterranean. So this is a significant threat, and the Gauls recognize this. Now, of course, one of the most famous things that happened, again, rich place, varied society, etc. Now, our evidence for the Gallic War, which is described by Caesar in his Gallic Wars. This is a source for a number of things that we know about Gauls, or we think we know, although obviously Caesar's biased. Caesar is writing for Caesar. Caesar's possibly writing to improve his perspective back in Rome. It's a fiercely competitive political arena, Rome is, and different individuals competing for power, civil war, etc. Expansionary wars, like his war in Gaul, also offer, not only do they offer an opportunity to get success, which you can celebrate, advertise back at Rome, but this can lead to greater political success. And when you're defeating someone in a foreign land, you're taking their stuff at the end, whether that's slaves or other goods and so on. So it gives you a chance to enrich yourself. So this is a great opportunity from Caesar's perspective. And so to some degree, this is all comes out in his commentaries. And I should say, too, these commentaries, this text that he wrote, usually sort of characterize, say, as a commentary, because they are sort of his description of things in the field. Okay, so there's all these things that cloud our judgment. All right. So when the war took place, sort of the very late 50s, 50, 51, etc., down into the early 40s, and over the course of a few years, Caesar managed to conquer all of the people in Gaul. Some of the Gallic tribes were with him, but a lot of them were against him, and fortunes fluctuated. It seems there were perhaps as many as 50 battles fought by Caesar, and possibly, and these are remarkable numbers. So, today some people talk about Gallic genocide, the number of Gauls killed by Rome and Caesar, and the number, if they weren't killed, enslaved, are staggering. And Caesar hints at these numbers as well. He claims he did it all for Rome and blah, blah, blah. So he says, possibly almost 1.2 million people dead. So that's almost the entire population of Manitoba, minus 100 or 200,000. He wrote about it in 7 books, and it's all very good. In his text, he names over 100 tribes. There's all sorts of claims about Gauls wanting freedom and so on. But of course, his coverage is a bit skewed. Right. So, and of course, the ultimate result of this is a complete Roman victory. Gaul becomes a Roman province. Roman trade and communications expand throughout the territory. Some places that had been prosperous before Rome took over, that maybe already had some trade with Rome, floundered afterwards. Other places emerged as Rome expanded their road network in regard to this. And I should say that the Gallic War also included some excursions into Germany, famously Caesar bridges the Rhine, and then into Britain as well. Anyway, so that's my short overview of Celts, Gauls, and Rome. Just scratch the surface. A lot of interesting material about this, but I'll stop there.